how I make friends. I have to say, hi, my name's Sally. Who's yours?
You're listening to the Eccentric podcast, where you don't have to be a Derek fan, but it sure does help.
Horrible voice.
You got a horrible voice.
Yes, I do.
How do you know that?
I hear it.
Well, here we are. Where are we right now?
We're in my lovely basement
Where's that at?
downstairs
Downstairs where?
in Clarksville.
Where's Clarksville?
It's on the map.
It's on the map. Isn't there a lot of Clarksvilles? Last train to Clarksville?
Yes.
Is this the same Clarksville?
No, that's Tennessee. This is Ohio.
Oh, in an non-disclosed location, a secret location?
No, not really. Everybody knows about it.
Well, I'm looking around. It's really well lit down here, but it's a little too well lit because how many clowns do you have down here?
Well, I would have to stop and count them.
More than 20?
Probably 50.
Now, what's up with clowns?
Well, I started out collecting them for one of my grandsons, and they decided I had too many, so I was stuck with them. And I kind of liked them.
How many grandsons do you have?
I have 1, 2, 3, 4.
How many great-grandsons?
1.
2. You have at least 2.
I have 1 great-grandson.
You have Jackson, and you have Johnny.
He's great. Johnny, yeah, I forgot about Johnny. I don't see him.
And now you have, Elliot?
Elliot's a great-grandson, you're right.
And then what about William and...
That's a girl. That's a granddaughter.
They don't have a second one? I thought they had a second one
They're
on the
going
way.
to in December.
Is that a boy or a girl?
Girl.
Oh, well, how many granddaughters do you have?
2 granddaughters and going to have 2 great-granddaughters.
Really?
Yep.
That's pretty awesome.
Haven't seen 2 of them.
Well, you don't look a day over 29, so...
You're pulling my leg now.
Oh, well, I do like your basement. It's much cooler down here.
I like it.
I think it's 90 upstairs and only 80 downstairs. So
Probably so. Until Grandpa gets in the house.
well, we know where we are. What are we doing right now?
Well, we're having a yard sale, and we're getting rid of a lot of stuff.
Yeah, who's your best customer?
All the people that come, they're all good customers.
You sound like you've done sales before. You ever
I have.
done sales?
I have done sales.
What'd you sell?
I sold Avon, and I sold a product called Lucier.
Is that like Avon?
It's like Avon, very old. I think they're probably out of business now.
Is that multi-level marketing?
I don't know what that is.
Is it a pyramid scheme?
No,
No?
I done it on my own.
Multi-level marketing. You didn't try to get people to sell under you?
No,
Oh,
I didn't
that's-
have to.
Were you good at it?
Well, I thought I was till I forgot to give their change back once in a while.
I bet you did that on purpose. You squirreled it away in your stinky sock drawer.
No.
We all know about that.
No, I didn't do that. I hid it in books.
Well, what are we doing right now?
We're talking together.
Why? You can laugh. It's fine to laugh. What is this called?
Broadcasting.
Podcasting.
Podcasting. I didn't know that till you told me.
Podcasting. What's a podcast?
I do not know till you tell me.
Oh, well, I purposely didn't want to talk to you about it because I want to catch you with your pants down. Not literally, figuratively. So a podcast is a really popular entertainment today. So I find it interesting because if you think about communication and entertainment over over the years, before we had recording devices, what did we do? We told stories.
Right.
Right? And stories were passed down from generation to generation.
Right.
And probably when you were a little girl, was there any, when you were, say, 10, did you have records at that point?
No, I think my dad played piano was our entertainment.
You had radio, though, right?
We had radio.
So you listened to radio. So I guess radio, I haven't given it a lot of thought, but radio was probably the first mass communication. That's where you got news, music.
Right.
Well, we've kind of made a full loop, because we're back to that now.
Right.
It's internet radio, which is all online.
Right.
But now everything's on the internet. But like podcasting is kind of a full loop, because now it's just people telling stories and people talking. But the cool thing is we can record it and it becomes a little piece of history. So we're making history right now.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So
It's good.
we should have started with, what is your name and who are you?
My name is Dora Myers. I'm a mother, a proud grandmother. I really love my family. They're all very good to me. Especially the one that comes all the way from Tennessee to help me with the yard sale.
Janice May?
No.
Oh, what's your middle name?
It's May.
Oh, who's Janice May?
That's my daughter.
How many daughters do you have?
I have two.
Do you have any sons?
I have two sons.
What are all their names?
Janice May, Donna Lee, Charles Phillip, and Gary Dwayne.
I don't know if I knew Uncle Phil's. I don't know if I knew his name was Charles.
His dad pulled that on me. His name was to be Philip Wayne.
Yeah.
And his dad changed it because both of our dad's first names was Charles.
Yeah.
And I hated them because they went by their nicknames.
Mm-hmm.
Neither one of them went by the name Charles. And then I had an Uncle Charles, and he was always called Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't like that for a little boy. That was old.
So Charles is an old family name. Are any of the other names that you named your kids old family names?
I named Janice, I think, after my mother because she told me if I was born on Father's Day, he could name me.
Yeah.
So I was born 1 minute after 12. So my dad got to name me, and I think he named me the May for my mother because her middle name was May, Kathleen May.
So Janice, your oldest daughter, you can cough, go ahead.
Sorry about that.
That's right, you're allowed to cough. I can always cut it out. Oh, so one thing about being with your grandma, you're my grandma, by the way, is we're going to get a whole bunch of telemarketer calls. So let's take this live. And now. Hello, Myers residents. Nothing. So we're gonna embrace the calls. I can only keep it so quiet. We know you're gonna get about 100 calls today.
That's
so
good.
We'll just have fun with it. Everyone's gonna hear these calls.
Okay.
We're gonna take it.
I hope not, but
So sorry about that interruption. My sister's middle name is also May. What was your mom's full name?
Kathleen May.
Suttles?
Settles, Suydam.
Oh, Suttles was her maiden name, and Suydam was her married name.
Right.
There aren't too many Suttles left, or like, are there any not Suttles? I meant to say Suydams. Are there any Suydams that you know?
Not too many, but there's Settles used to be called like settlers, some way or other.
Oh,
I
that's
found that out
interesting.
by a neighbor that got on his computer and told me it was settlers.
Yeah. Well, what I found is a lot of times people would come here, they'd come in from other countries, and they'd go to, say, like Ellis Island, and they'd register as they were, coming to the United States, and whatever the person at the desk heard is what they'd write. So it could have been settlers, or maybe that was a name they just made up because they were moving here, and then somehow someone heard.
Could have been.
someone heard subtles, so they just wrote that down.
Right.
I think that happens. That still happens today. I think, especially when people are coming here with less English, and if they have a heavy accent, whoever registers them will just write it however they hear it.
Well, Suydam was kind of a hard name to get people to know how to spell it, because it's got a slash Sue, like Sue, a girl's name Sue, and then Dam. And a lot of people call it Suydam.
Oh yeah, it's
because the S-U-Y, Suey.
Mm-hmm.
Suydam. It might have been more, but I kind of forget right now at the moment. So many spellings.
You haven't been a Suydam for quite a while.
No, I haven't.
How long has it been since you've been a Suydam?
Probably 68 years now.
68 years.
68 long years.
Is your husband still alive?
Yes, he is.
Do you love him as much today as you did back then?
I certainly do.
More or less?
Probably the same. He was the love of my life.
How did you meet him?
Well, he was a blind date. His best boyfriend was going with my best girlfriend at the time, and they got us together.
Mm-hmm.
And like I tell everybody else, I didn't like him at first.
How come?
Well, at first I thought he was kind of a smart aleck.
Was
But
he?
he was funny. He was always funny, always laughing. But then he come for a date one night, and he come in his white Navy uniform, and that sold me. I fell in love with him right then and there.
How long from the time you met him until you got engaged? What was the time?
I hate to say this, but about 18 times.
What's 18 times mean?
That means that's how long we went together, and we got married after 18 dates.
18 dates. From first date until marriage, how many months? Or was it weeks?
It was days.
18 days?
It was 18 days.
So you went on a date every day for 18 days.
Got married.
And that sailor uniform just did it for you. Men,
It got me.
men in uniforms. Were there ever any other men in uniforms, or he was the first one and you said, "Oh, I better get this one while I got the chance"?
No, I think he was the first one, but I just fell in love with his personality after I got to know him, because I had many, many, many boyfriends.
Oh boy.
And they never worked out.
I'm going to have to erase that part.
But he did.
Yeah. We're born in Clarksville, right?
Right.
How many people live in Clarksville today? Is it less than 1,000 or more than 1,000?
I'd say more than 1,000 right now.
Yeah. I guess it's pretty spread out, but it's a pretty small town, right?
Right.
Compared to Chattanooga?
Oh, much. Yeah, much smaller. But it's just a nice little town because it's like a little country town. Neighbors were more friendly back then than they are now. Most neighbors now keep to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But they're good neighbors. I mean, they'll speak to you when you go out, wave at you.
When you were younger, what was the major industry in the area?
Well, we had a corn factory. We had a Valley Steel.
Mm-hmm.
We had doctors. I think maybe 2 doctors. We had a bank, 2 groceries, 2 restaurants, a blacksmith shop.
What do they do at a blacksmith shop? What is that?
Well, like, I guess with horses. I don't know.
They grew horses there?
No. I guess they just made their shoes. I don't know about that.
Metalworks, probably.
Could be. Very interesting town.
Has
Schools.
Clarksville grown or shrunk since then?
I think it's growing.
Are there still banks and blacksmith shops?
No, everything's gone. They put in a new highway. It was called the 3C, Cincinnati, Columbus, and Cleveland. And it took all the industry away and kind of got us off the map a little bit.
I see. So maybe we should talk about how you know me. How long have you known me, I guess?
How old are you?
37 and a half.
I've known you for 37 and a half years.
Oh, well, we must be related.
And I babysitted you.
Yeah?
And used to do a lot of dancing around. I collected bells at the time, and I held you up, and you'd slap the bells and laugh, and you kept wanting to go up and slap them. And
Do you credit yourself for my incredible dance skills?
I think I do.
Yeah. Tell me about my early training of dancing.
Well, you wasn't a very good dancer because I had to hold you, so
Oh,
you couldn't
boy.
dance when I was holding you.
But did I get better over time?
No, I think you kind of cut that out. I
Oh,
think you kind of grew up and
I'm a really good dancer now.
got a little settled down more.
I got this big old butt of mine. It helps me dance. we can say whatever we want here. Normally when I'm doing a podcast, oh, you're my grandma, by the way. I think everyone's probably figured that out.
I hope
But
so.
a lot of the time when I'm doing a podcast, as I'm talking to my friends, I say, for the most part, we need to make a podcast that my grandma could listen to. And I say, my grandma probably doesn't know what a podcast is. And she'd have a heck of a time trying to figure out how to listen to one. And she'd get bored or offended real fast. But in general, I say that's kind of my parameters. Like, some of the people I talk to are a little rougher than others. So some of the stuff, I try to keep it grandma approved. But if it's not, then I just give a warning. This is not grandma approved.
That makes a lot of sense.
Something else you said that I'd like to talk about is you said you had a bird collection. Is that what you said, or a bell collection?
I had a bell collection. Then somehow, I don't know how it happened, I just started collecting everything. I
Everything.
collected owls, birds, bottles, old bottles, little pitchers. I got a little tiny shoe collection. My grandson hasn't seen that yet.
Oh boy. He'd probably try to sell it at the yard sale.
I'm afraid he would.
Well, I'm down here in your basement, and there's thousands and thousands of newspapers, hair, fingernail clippings. I think there's a name for that.
Would that be a junk collector?
I think that's called a hoarder, the H word. Why do you have Ziplocs full of thousands and thousands of nail clippings?
I didn't know I did.
I'm just messing with you.
I thought you was.
The basement's looking pretty good.
I think it is.
It's very well organized. Do you have a daughter that comes every once in a while and straightens it up?
Absolutely. She comes about once a year to really dig in. And the last time she came, I didn't let her do too much because I was kind of ashamed at things that really needed to be done, but I didn't want her to do it. And it's hard for me to sit back and watch her do the things that I used to do, because I was like you and your mother. I had tons of energy.
Yeah.
And was always on the go, always on the move, just like you, always doing something.
Always messing.
And I was always hoarding.
I guess I have you to blame for my collections. I have too many collections, and my grandson will probably come along one day and try to sell everything for a dime.
I hope not.
Grandpa Derek, no one's going to buy this. Sell it for a dime. By then, we'll have all digital currency, or we'll have something crazy.
You know, that's kind of what my grandson sitting here with me now tells me. You probably won't get a dime out of that. That's not what you think it's worth. I'll just put a dime on it.
Well, how's the yard sale been going so far?
Very good. He's been taking care of it.
How much money have you made so far?
Let me say that.
Yeah, you can say it. This
About
is
$180 so far. My grandson's done it all.
well, that's pretty good. We can say whatever we want on this podcast, and at the end, if we said I shouldn't have said that, I can go back and I can cut it out because I'm going to have to listen to this all over again,
Oh,
and I'll cut out all your coughs, and I'll cut out the dumb stuff that I say. It's like, why did I say that?
okay, me too.
You know, I love the sound of my voice. So
I don't like the sound of my voice at all. I'm got a real horsey voice,
oh well.
and people think I'm a smoker. I've never smoked. I tried to smoke when I was younger, trying to be like the big guys, I guess you'd say, and smoking just wasn't for me. My mother caught me, and I think what hurt me the most, she never said a word. And I couldn't smoke like the ladies that, kind of stood up and inhaled it and blowed it out. I couldn't do that, so I just lost interest in it.
Did you try smoking a cigarette?
Yeah, I tried smoking people's old cigarette butts. We'd steal them from my aunt, and it was crazy. So
They probably didn't have filters back then, did they?
no,
That made it even harder.
it did. And I think my dad smoked, I guess, all of his life, and that really bothered me because he had, they call it COPD today, but he had emphysema. They called it back then, bronchitis.
Mm-hmm.
And that might have been where I got my cough that I do all the time. I think secondhand smoke is just as hard on you as smoking.
Besides selling Avon and that other thing I've already forgot, what other jobs did you have?
Well, I worked in a drugstore. I worked in 2 factories.
What factories?
One was Pennant Molding in Sabine, Ohio.
What did you make?
Refrigerator parts.
Hmm.
And the other one was Randall Company, and they made just parts. I don't remember what we done there.
Mm-hmm.
I was a packer. I packed the parts that came through on the line, grabbed them and packed them.
We should get you a job at Amazon now.
Too old to work now.
No.
I couldn't keep up with them. And an interesting job I had that I really liked was I was a telephone operator. And my girlfriend and I roomed in an apartment, and she decided to go back home. I guess she got tired of it or something. I don't remember. But so I had to quit because I couldn't make it on my own. And my boss told me, she said, Dora, I didn't think you'd ever learn this job. But she said, when you got it, you had it. And I never forgot her saying that. That just was the best compliment I think I ever had.
What did you do as a telephone operator?
Well, it was old-fashioned back then. You had to time people when they come on and drop money in. Then you could cut them off if they had foul language. But I done a pretty dirty trick at that time. I was always calling my folks. We had a telephone. We did have a telephone. And I'd call them and I'd hang up on them. And I have always really regretted that.
You're pranking them?
I was mean. I was ornery. Yeah, I was. So that's one of my regrets.
You don't think they would have thought that was funny?
Well, they knew who it was. They knew it was me because I could ring and then hang up or talk to them. And
So I've seen movies of board operator. Were you a board operator where you would move?
yeah, I was an operator, and you worked the controls there by you.
You had to put money in?
Well, if it was a payphone, and that was really hard to do because sometimes you'd get a drunk on there, and you couldn't reason with them. You'd say, like, put 35 cents in, sir. Well, you know what a drunk would say and carry on, and it was hard to get them. So you just have to kind of cut them off.
So they were at a payphone, and you were telling them put in 35 cents. How did you know when they would put in 35 cents?
It would kind of register. I don't remember all of that job because that was too long ago.
But you think you could hear it? You could hear the coins going
I
in?
think so. I don't quite remember that at all.
That's
But
interesting.
I loved the job. It was very interesting. You really got into some conversations. Because I was only allowed to listen till they connected with the person they were calling.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd have to hang up, but I'd time them. You know, they had so long to talk with, like, money.
Did you ever eavesdrop? Listen in?
Oh, yeah. My girlfriend did, too. And she really liked this boy that come into Wilmington. The Air Force moved into Wilmington. And she kind of liked this guy. And she got a call from him one night, and he was talking to his girlfriend and asked her if she'd got the wedding invitation sent out yet.
Was she mad?
That done it. It's good she found that out. And so you heard some really interesting conversations.
I kind of feel like eavesdropping would be more, you'd feel more bad about than just pranking your parents.
Well, yeah, probably did.
They're both pretty awesome, though.
But it was fun. That was fun.
That's
Interesting
hilarious.
job.
And now telemarketers get you back. How many times a day does a telemarketer call you?
I'd say probably 50.
What are they normally saying to you?
They're telling me their names, and most of them are foreigners.
Mm-hmm.
And they try to get you to sign up for insurance, which I already have the benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to sell you an alert button, which I already have one.
I answered the phone a little while ago, and they were trying to, congratulations, you've been selected.
Yeah, I get a lot of those.
Well, that's just payback for your days of pranking your parents.
I think so too. Probably was.
What I've always thought is really funny about you is how polite you are with every person that calls. Your grandpa is too, but you're very, very, maybe you're getting less so if you're getting 50 calls a day. But something I remember about you from years ago was telemarketers would call, maybe when it wasn't quite so bad, and you're always as polite to them as if someone else made a wrong phone number or something. So I always thought that was funny.
Well, I felt sorry for them because, that was their job. And they had to do what they had to do. I mean, that's probably how they made their living. I don't know, but it was very irritating because you'd have to go from one room out to another room to answer the phone, and that's all you found.
Yeah. Any other interesting jobs you had?
Yeah, I worked in a restaurant a lot of times, and I loved it. I got a lot of tips because I was nice to people.
Mm-hmm.
And the customer's always right, even if they're dead wrong. And I'd take my tips and play the jukebox. That's all I did with my money. And my mother worked there too, and she thought it was terrible, but I don't know why. I wanted everybody just to hear my music, just to hear music in there. It was an old jukebox. I loved it.
What were you listening to?
Just all the old songs, 50s, 60s, or probably 40s.
Did your mom hate your style of music back then?
No, she just didn't like me always putting my money in there. And I think I probably was doing it for attention. I don't know. I just liked hearing the music and making people happy. And sometimes somebody'd say, waitress, here's a quarter. Just put it in the jukebox.
How many songs would a quarter get you?
Probably one or two, maybe one.
Yeah, I don't know I have no idea what it costs now. But nowadays, they have these, it's like a box on the wall. I want to say it's more than $1 a song. And it's all internet based. So if they don't have it, I think that it'll download it they'll get it for you.
Wow.
And I want to say that the first time, if it's never been played on that jukebox, you pay a little bit more. So you pay like an initial fee. Usually songs nowadays is 99 cents a song, or it was the last time I bought music, which I probably never have. But I think they used to be 99 cents, or at least 10 years ago they were 99 cents. Could have been. So then I think now, or at least the last time I played on an internet jukebox, then the next time it's a little bit cheaper. I don't know how much, but it's more than a quarter now.
Well, one bad habit I had too, among many bad habits, I bought all kinds of movie magazines and would cut out the pictures and put them all over my wall in my room. My mother never said anything because I took very good care of my room. I hung up my clothes when I got out of them, and she just kind of let me have my privacy. But then I loved to send for stuff in the mail, and I was always doing that, and sometimes she'd have to pay it for me. Yeah, and I got stuck with a lot of stuff that wasn't good, but I loved getting packages in the mail. Still do. But I don't send for anything anymore.
What kind of stuff would you send for when you were
I sent
younger?
for books. I'd sent for magazines, records. I sent for a lot of records. This was even after I was married, I'd do that. And I had to quit it. It's, money, dumb stuff like that.
How much was a record back then?
I don't remember.
You know how much?
Sometimes I'd get a big, thick bunch of records, and it was pretty high back then.
Do you remember how much shipping was? You had to pay
No.
for shipping?
No, I don't remember that at all.
Because when I was a teenager, CDs was kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
I don't remember the name of the service, but you get, I think, a magazine, and there's all the low. I'm trying to think of what the one was called. It's Wow, I think. Wow Now or Now. I think it was Now, and then I heard recently there's like Now 60. So every year the top 10 songs or 15 songs would be on a CD.
Yeah.
But you've seen a lot of technology over your life. So started with radio. That was the main way to listen to entertainment, music, and they probably had, I think they had some comedy back then you could listen to on a record. And then after, radio was everything. It was news, it was music, it was storytelling.
Right.
And then it became, was it records after? Was it records the next?
I remember we had a small television. It was my dad's first television, and he loved it. His first movie was The Lone Ranger. It was he always wanted me to watch it with him. First time he got the television, he loved it, and he wanted me to watch it with him. I'm sure he did. I had this girlfriend with me, and I wanted to show her the town, the big town of Clarksville. I wanted to show it off to her, and I left him, and that's another bad regret I have. I didn't take the time to spend the time with my dad.
Was that just one time, or were you always going out with your girlfriends?
It probably was. I didn't stay home much because we had our own apartment, and I was on my own, and nobody told me what to do. And
well, I don't think you need to regret that. I think that's a pretty common young person thing. Get out of the house. Nowadays, they'd say, get out of the house, stop watching television.
yeah, right, right.
Yeah. Do you remember what came first, records or TV? I don't actually know.
I believe the records, but I remember my dad made a record, and I still have that record. He made it.
You still have it?
I still have it. He talked on it and said his name. He was a piano player, didn't know one note.
He was a pianist?
A pianist. Yeah, he was a pianist. And, yeah, I still have that record.
Well, that's awesome. I didn't know you had that.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. What kind of music did he play?
Oh, anything. You just hum a song, stand by him, whistle, hum it, he'd sit down and play it.
What did he do for a living?
Piano. And my dad was in the movies. Believe it or not, he was in the movies. He had a little piano he carried with him. And my dad was a real funny guy. He loved to make people laugh. Wore a lot of makeup, and he'd be in, we called them minstrels back then when I was in school.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd come to my school and he'd make people laugh. And I thought he was the best person in the world. I just loved him.
Well, that's awesome. So where did he play his music at?
Oh, downtown in one of the bars, probably, one of the restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
And people would come up and put money in the jar if he played their song or whatever he played. And I got mad at him one time for playing a song because my favorite was Beer Barrel Polka.
Beer Bell?
Beer Barrel Polka. And when I brought my husband home, he kind of played that song for him. And I was very jealous. So I didn't like it. But then I got to thinking about it, and I was proud because he done that.
Well, yeah, maybe he was doing it for both of you if
He
he knew
was.
that was your favorite.
He was.
Well, I noticed something. Your husband and your dad both made you laugh a lot. Was your husband like your dad, do you think?
A lot. Of course, at that time, my husband drank. He'd be funny then. I don't know. It was my dad that was really the clown. I think that's why I like clowns. My dad was a clown.
Yeah.
And he was funny. And these clowns, they have funny looks on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know it, but I've got a friend that's scared of clowns. I don't think your mother likes them either. But to me, they're funny looking. They dress funny, and they was out to make people laugh. That's all they did, and a lot of people don't like them. But every one of them, you look at them in my basement, they all seem to have smiles on them.
Yeah, you've got a combination of, some of them look like hobo clowns.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite kind of clown? Some of them look like they're Mardi Gras clowns.
Yeah, I got some favorites. I like that one because he's really laughing.
Yeah, he's kind of looks like a circus clown.
Yeah.
I think I just don't like the ones that look a little like a child. I don't like that one. I like his clothes, but I don't like the child-looking ones. I like the hobos the best.
Yeah, I like them too.
They're funny. Maybe back then they were just men with mental disorders who wanted to.
Well, a lot of them do have a sad look on their face too, and I've always wondered, that person maybe felt sad and they looked sad. Mm-hmm. That one right up there on next to the end.
Oh,
look how sad he looks.
Yeah, there's a couple of them there that are sad.
Yeah, so I don't care much for them. I just like the funny ones. Somebody will get them someday. I don't know who would want them, but somebody will get them, get a kick out of them. I hope.
Need a drink of tea?
Probably. I feel like I'm going to choke.
Now's a good time to take a little break, or we're okay to take a little break because I'm trying to get caught up on I've got notes in too many places.
Don't you tell this to anybody. All this stuff I'm telling you, don't you dare.
Did you have any hobbies when you were younger? What were some hobbies you had?
Oh, I had a lot of hobbies. I collected movie stars. My collections, my records. I liked reading. I loved playing in the dirt, growing things, mainly flowers. I love to write.
What kind of stuff do you like to write?
Well, I've got a ton of journals.
How many do you think you have?
Well, I started out in high school with one. Somebody gave me as a gift, and I started writing in it, and I've wrote in it ever since. And your mother can tell you how many I got.
Do you have every one you've ever written?
I think so, except the first one was a little tiny one. I think I got rid of it. I think I burned it.
How come?
And I should burn the ones I have now because I know nobody's going to read them. They're too long, there's too many, and I need to burn them. But I probably got books and notebooks. And
Well, I would say don't burn them because you could be famous at some point. So there's a photographer. Her name is Vivian Meyer. It's one or the other. She took photos. She was a nanny in New York and Chicago. And she was just some eccentric girl in the, I want to say 30s or 40s maybe. I can't remember exactly what decade, but she She never showed anyone the photos. She took the photos, film, and never processed them, never had them printed. And people found them, did all this photography, never showed it to anyone. And people look back on her work now, and it's worth millions and millions and millions. People are bought it up as fast as they could, made books. And they said that she captured a part of United States history that no one had ever seen before.
Oh, my goodness.
And they tried tracking her down, and by the time they found her, she had just died.
Boy, isn't that sad.
And people are she never wanted to be famous. She never wanted anyone to see her work necessarily. She was one of the first people. Do you know what a selfie is? It's, a self-portrait is.
Oh, yeah.
So nowadays they call it a selfie. She was the first person on record, I think, to take photos of herself regularly in the reflection of a truck. And just, it's an amazing documentation. There's another guy named Mike Disfarmer who was a photographer. And he was a man, he gave himself the last name Disfarmer. That wasn't his last name, but he was convinced that his parents stole him from an orphanage, or he would not admit that his parents were his parents. So he left them and became a photographer in a tiny little town. He was just this oddball guy.
What a good story.
And he'd take photos. He was the town photographer. And they found years and years, like 20 or 30 years of documenting this town.
Oh, my gosh.
That could be you one day.
Yeah, but you know what? Another one of my regrets is that I never wrote a book. I always wanted to write a book.
What would you write about?
I wanted to write about this town. I always wanted to write a book about this town because I've got a lot of memories here.
Why can't you write a book now?
I'm too old. I can't see. My eyes are really bad.
Do you know how old Colonel Sanders was when he started KFC?
I've heard that. I don't remember, but I've heard.
Could you write one sentence a day?
Yeah.
So you could write a book.
Well, Peggy Allen just wrote a book, and she's sold many, many of them and gave them away, and she doesn't keep one penny. She's putting it on our black top fund at the church. I think that's marvelous.
Yeah. Well, why don't you write a book? One sentence a day for the next 30 years.
Nobody'd be interested in that.
I would be. All my listeners would be.
I doubt that.
What would the title of the book be?
I think probably something like My Memories of Clarksville or My Hometown of Clarksville, something like that.
By Dora Myers. Well, the title's...
Dora Suydam-Myers.
The title's there. All you gotta do, one... Your eyes, I think, are good enough. You could do one sentence a day for the next 30 years, and you'll have a book.
Oh, yeah, 30 years. How old would I be? Ooh.
Well, 29 plus 30, so that would be 59. You'll be 59 years old.
Yeah.
Well, you're coming up on 70 years of marriage.
Yep.
You're at 68 now.
I hope we make it. I really hope. Then after that, I'm ready to go. I really am.
Well,
I'm sick all the time. I'm no good to anybody. I can't do nothing.
well, you're good to me.
Well.
How many times a month do we talk on the phone?
Oh, a lot. More than any others.
Probably not once a week.
And right now, looking at you, you look just like a Myers. To me, you do.
Yeah.
You look a lot like Gary.
My cousin William, he looks just like Grandpa did when he was in the Navy.
I heard that somebody told me, I think your mother did. Or Janice, I think Nanny did.
Yeah, they look like twins. What was it like when Grandpa was in the Navy?
It was really good. It was, of course, back then it was good because we was in love. So everything was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we went out and done things together and walked. And,
so when you got married, how long had he already been in the Navy?
I think almost 4 years because I went back to California with him when he had 3 months to go for his discharge.
Mm-hmm. He was 4 years in total?
Yeah.
Where'd you stay in California?
Well, we stayed in just any old cheap apartment we could find. They didn't make much money.
What city were you in?
San Diego.
Yeah, how was that?
It was wonderful.
Better than Clarksville?
Oh, much. Yeah, it was warm and flowers. And we met two couples, and their names was John and June, Jim and Jean, and Don and Dora. I tried to catch up with them, but I never could get anybody to.
Yeah. Did you spend a lot of time at the beach?
No, we went to the zoo. It was the biggest zoo I've ever been in. And like I said, you can cut this part out, but Grandpa drank then.
Yeah.
And we went to bars. And he took me to his favorite bar this one night.
Mm-hmm.
And this one girl come and sat on his lap. It's a wonder. I got so mad at Jason one night over at the house. When I got back over here, I was going, and Grandpa said, "Dora, what's the matter with you?" I said, "I am so mad. I could have hit him. I was so mad."
That's the last time. So the girl who sat on his lap, had you never been that mad?
He said, I don't think so. He said, because I was very, very jealous of him. He wasn't me, and that made me even madder.
What was her name?
I don't remember her name. She was pretty. And he said she had never, ever done that before.
She was marking her territory or what?
No, he said he always played shuffleboard with her, and she's very good at it. And that was always his partner. I don't believe that. I don't know. I don't know what. I still have dreams about her. I kind of wish I'd hit her.
What did she
Pull
look
her hair
like?
Or something. She was pretty.
Blonde?
But I said, that's my husband. We just got married. We're on our honeymoon. She soon left. She got off. I just wonder I didn't try to kill her. I had a temper. Oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe. When somebody goes like this, like Nanny.
With their tongue out?
Yeah. My dad done that.
That's funny. So when I'm concentrating, my tongue's always out. I don't know if that's where I get it, but I'm not usually angry.
You got it from my dad. My dad always had his tongue out. When he was working on something, doing something.
That's me completely. Well, that's funny. Yeah, you have any other stories of the Navy, like your time in the Navy? What did you do while Grandpa was working?
Well, I met this girl. I spent a lot of time with her. That's when I got pregnant. We both walked to the doctor. It was an old Chinese doctor.
Yeah.
And I told him I was sick of my stomach every day. And he said, well, don't you know you're pregnant? No, I didn't know I was. 2 years. We was married 2 years, so.
How old were you when you first found out you were pregnant?
See, I was 20, probably 21. No, I couldn't be more than that. I was probably 22.
It's a pretty good age, I guess.
Yeah, because he was 22 and we was married 2 years before.
Because I think my other grandparents started having kids when Grandma was 16.
Probably so. They did then.
They've been married for over 70 years now. You were at their anniversary party.
That was wonderful. Oh, but they still get along good too.
Yeah, I can't believe I have 4 living grandparents. I'm the luckiest boy in the world.
You sure are.
I got the best grandma in the world.
You better have. I put up with a lot from you.
Yeah. Maybe we won't talk about that.
We better not, because I'd start.
You get mad again, get your tongue out and your fists going again, and you'll start thinking about that girl whose name is probably Melissa. What was the most popular name back then for a female? I feel like Melissa or Jennifer, Karen.
I don't remember. And I don't remember.
Do you remember exactly what she looked like?
No, I don't.
Do you know what color hair she had?
No, I don't remember. She probably had long legs. Probably had nice boobs.
Probably.
But what made me the maddest, he didn't say nothing. He just left her sit there. I was about ready to take a hold of her and yank her up. You get off my husband's lap. It's a wonder I didn't do something. It really is.
That's funny. I
Skinny Minnie, and I had a temper like a bull.
That's funny. Did you have any siblings?
Yeah, my brother and sister.
You're the baby?
Mm-hmm.
What was the age difference between you and your brother and sister?
I think 10 years from my brother and 8 years from my sister.
So you were 8 years younger than the next oldest.
Yeah, I was 10.
What was their names?
Charles Richard Marshall and Norma Jean Marshall.
What did they call Charles? Did he have a nickname?
Yeah. His nickname was Dick. Charles Richard. But older people back then called you generally by your full name. Most of the older people always called me Dora May.
Yeah.
And I think that's a beautiful name because my dad named me that.
Well,
I think Dora was from a neighbor that was an Army nurse. And I don't know why he did that because they called her Dory. And I hate Dory. Mike over here calls me Dory, Aunt Dory. But my nickname from my dad was Pud.
Pud?
Nobody else can call me Pud except my niece Carolyn out in South Dakota and my dad.
What does the Pud mean? Pud?
Pud.
What does that mean?
I was his little puddin'.
Puddin'?
You know, like puddin'tane. Ask me again and I'll tell you the same.
I don't know what that is, but I do know what pudding, like chocolate pudding.
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing?
And his Aunt Fern, her husband called her Pud.
That's
just a nickname they called us.
And your sister's name was Norma?
Uh-huh.
Are we in her old house right now?
Yes.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Well, at first it wasn't because I don't believe in ghosts, but I did think the house was haunted because I thought I heard her walking up the steps saying, "Get out of my house." And things was creaking upstairs and the things was making noise. That thing there, Bill took that down.
Smoke detector?
And then it went off when Young'un was cooking. Remember when that went off?
Yeah. Well, that's funny. We can't have a podcast without at least mentioning the big yellow house. Tell me about that. Do you miss it?
Yeah. I don't know why it was too big. It was time to downsize. Because like I said, I was a hoarder. And I'd go to yard sales and I had a place to sneak stuff in and hide it. So Grandpa wouldn't see it.
You were a hoarder, but not fingernail clippings, like I said earlier.
No, I never collected fingernail clippings. No. Or hair. No. No.
Well, that's funny. Tell me more about how'd you get the house and how long did you live there?
My grandparents had it. They bought it from a wealthy man.
What was his name?
I think it was a Ball family. I went to the Historical Society, but I never followed up on it because it was either Baugh or Ball. And your mother got a picture from the old house and the old man, and I always wondered if that might have been the landlord back then.
Also, people from Clarksville don't pronounce L's, right?
Else.
What's a fermented cucumber?
Sour pickle.
Oh, you say it with a little bit of an L. Mom doesn't say L. She's like Pickle. And when we were kids, there was a Pickle. It's a pickle.
When I was growing up, it was wash. She says wash.
You still say wash.
I do. And my folks didn't say creek. They said crick. You want to go down to creek today? It wasn't sink. And where they got this, I don't know. It was zinc. His mother and my mother called it a zinc. It was always a zinc, not a sink. I never knew where they got that at. But
is there any other words that are very Clarksvillian? Villain?
Well, everywhere I go, people think I'm from Kentucky or West Virginia. So I must have some kind of an accent. I don't know why or where. I think your mother's picking up the Wisconsin accent now.
What state do you live in?
Ohio. Yes, she gets me on that too. So Gary, Ohio. Ohio.
It's fun. Well, so something, as you were telling me about the ghost of Norma Jean, do you have an active imagination?
Very.
Have you always had that?
Yes. I was awful in school.
How come?
I hated school because I was a dreamer.
Mm-hmm.
I liked parts of school. I liked the good parts, the fun parts. I loved drama, believe that or not. I loved drama.
Mm-hmm.
I liked music, and believe this or not, I loved sports. I played ball, I played volleyball, I played basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And I never wanted to miss a game on Friday night. Walked up to the gym.
Is your school still sitting up there?
Yes, it is.
Is it still a school?
No. Man and woman bought it, and he died, and she made an apartments out of it, and it didn't work. I think it was trash or something with the town, with the water system or something like that.
I see.
But I loved to write. I loved spelling. Just the fun parts. My brother really taught me a lot because he was a school teacher. He was my teacher at one time. I wasn't allowed to call him Mr. Marshall, or that's what I was supposed to call him, and I couldn't do that. I wouldn't say nothing. I just, And he was very smart. Norma was very smart. She was almost a registered nurse. And my brother I always felt like I was the black sheep of the family because I never done nothing.
Yeah.
I still have an imagination. I was always telling weird stories to my friends.
Yeah, what kind of stories did you tell them?
Mostly ghost stories. I took a girlfriend up in the big room over at the big house. This is another good memory for me. A scary one.
At the yellow house.
Yeah. I don't know what they was doing with it, but I found a red light bulb. Climb up to this chandelier and put that red light bulb on and turn the other lights off.
Mm-hmm.
And I was telling her a story, and we both got so scared, we sat in the closet for I don't know how long. I couldn't even come out of the closet to turn the right lights on, take the red bulb out and put the...
So your stories were so good they'd even scare you.
Yeah, they did. That and did, because it was weird. The room was big and high, and it was just weird. But I did have a terrible imagination.
Yeah.
Just really... I didn't want to study. I hated to study. I loved throwing spitballs in school. I'd done that a lot. I told you I was ornery.
You were ornery.
I was ornery. So.
Well, that's funny. So, I guess we talk more about the yellow house. How you acquired it? Your grandparents acquired it from the Balls, and then what happened?
Then, my brother bought it. Painted it. It was brown. It was a beautiful place. And just even when it was old brown, to me it was just a beautiful place. And my cousins Bill and Donnie, they was over at the big house a lot, and we played together. And I think I remember we'd get into it, and they'd say, "Well, this is not your house," and I'd say, "Well, it's going to be someday." And my brother bought it, and he didn't want to live in Clarksville because he didn't like the barking dogs. And so he went to Princeton High School to teach, and I come into my inheritance from my dad, and I bought the house. And went from there, fixing it up, and I loved it.
How long did you live there?
I loved that house. I guess I'd say all my life. I lived there when I was married.
Were you born in the house?
Yes, born in the living room.
Why didn't you go to a hospital?
They didn't do that. They had, what do they call them? Women that come in.
Midwives?
Midwives. And I had one, her name was Catherine Rhinesmith. And every time she saw me, she'd say, "You know, I was the first one that ever held you when you was a baby." And she probably smacked my butt, I don't know.
Were you Do you know back then, was it like in a bathtub? Did you do it? Were you born in a bathtub?
No, I was born in a bed.
Just in the bed?
Yeah,
Sounds messy.
yeah, probably was then.
Nowadays they do it in a bathtub. I don't know if that's cleaner or what. But
I don't know. I didn't know they done it in a bathtub.
I think so. I don't know. All I know is what I've seen in TV shows and movies.
Well, you don't want to believe that. So,
Well, that's cool. So you were born in the house and you lived there for at least 29 years since you're 29 years old. Well, 29 minus the 5 years. How long have you been in this house now? Your sister's
about
old
four.
house.
I think 4 years we've been here. About 4 years.
How come you don't live in the yellow house now?
Well, my two girls thought it was time for me to downsize. Getting older, I thought the house was too much for me and Grandpa because we had a wood stove. And getting wood, which we both loved to getting wood and cutting it, and I helped him cut it and split it, but carrying out ashes, and it was dirty. But I loved it because it had 5 fireplaces, and I loved telling people that. We had 5 fireplaces in our house. And we found things there. We slept under a feather tick and a feather tick on top of us upstairs. And
How many bedrooms was it?
5.
Two stories and a big old basement?
Yep. Full basement.
Was there any secrets in the house?
Yep. There was. There was a secret room. And I was a nosy little child. I kept seeing this little door on the outside of this building. And at that time, the windows were so old, you had to prop them up with a stick.
Mm-hmm.
And my folks moved in upstairs, and we had that little back room. If you remember that little back room, that was our kitchen. And I kept looking out, wonder what that little tiny door is. It was only a door about like that.
Mm-hmm.
Nosy me, I went and got me a big old stick and put the window up. I crawled out on that roof. I don't know how old I was. I opened that door. I got the scare of my life. There was a whole bunch of real thick boards in it and this great big huge metal tank, and it had 1800. I seen that on it.
Mm-hmm.
How they ever got that up there, I don't know. And covered, sided it in. I think Norma had told me there was a bathtub because we found pipes going down in the kitchen, the old kitchen. Pipes going down the wall, and I think their water come down. Norma said they had a round bathtub. She told me that one time. There was a round bathtub, and there was an old pump, she said, down in the corner of the front yard. I never knew that. She told me a lot of stuff about the house, but it was...
Well, you know what I'm hearing about you? Sounded like you were always messing.
I was nosy. I come up and looked in the closets. I found a big old antique clock. I don't know whatever happened to that clock. My dad's makeup case, I got that. I got his old makeup because, he's always making up.
Mm-hmm.
And I got that, and I'd take his... That was my last doll. I think your mother and Janice, I think, tore that up kind of. I don't know whatever happened to that. But I'd take his makeup case and put it on my doll and Vaseline like I was making her up,
Yeah.
And he had an old China doll. She had one leg. I think they tore it up.
Darn their hides. That's a Clarksville pull right there.
That was mean. I wasn't mean, but they was mean. Found a lot of things there in that old closet. Feather ticks, and my dad he tuned his own pianos, and he had a big set of piano tools.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what happened to them.
Did you ever learn to play the piano?
I took lessons. You sure you want to hear this story?
Yeah.
It was 50 cents a lesson from my neighbor. I was doing really good, but I started taking the money. My mother gave me 50 cents to pay my neighbor. Go downtown with my girlfriend because we was going on this paper route. We bought potato chips, a candy bar, and a pop, all for 50 cents.
No, you didn't.
And we'd go on the paper route.
Darn your hide.
My mother got onto it, and she quit. She made me quit. I wish she had beat me. I I've been good. I've been a good piano player. I got the long fingers, and my dad always said, your long fingers makes you a good piano player.
Mm-hmm.
William would have been a good piano player.
Yeah.
That's the story there.
Well, you were naughty. It sounds to me
I
like
told you I was.
all the things that you say about me when I was younger, I got it all from you. You can't be too mad at me. Well, that's funny. So, kind of talking about your imagination and storytelling, some of my best memories growing up was you telling me bedtime stories.
Sandman.
The Sandman. Yeah, tell us about the Sandman, where that came from and kind of what the story was.
I think it came from my imagination, because I was trying to make you go to sleep. And I always liked affection.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an affectionate person. And my dad was. My mother wasn't. My mother was more strict. My dad was very affectionate. I don't know why. I really wish she'd made me play the piano. I think I'd really been good today.
Mm-hmm.
I could have played for the church and, different things.
Why don't you start practicing now?
I'm too old.
Do you know how old Colonel Sanders was when he started KFC?
Seems like I've heard this story before.
But I have a question about the Sandman that I've never asked you before. Where did you first hear about the Sandman, and who is he to you?
I think he came out of my imagination, because I loved to make over the kids to put them to sleep. I done it to put them to sleep, and I'd just start rubbing them, and my imagination, I made up stories. They all went to sleep except Chris. Chris was like this. Tell me more, Grandma. What happened, Grandma? Tell me more. What was that hole for? I told him some awful stories.
That's funny. So the Sandman, you invented him?
I think I did. I
He
really
wasn't
believe it.
like something that you had heard from your parents, or there was some kind of...
I may have heard something. The one thing I think I heard, you knock on the door
knock on your forehead,
and raise up the door latch
pull your nose up,
and walk in the door.
and open the mouth.
Yeah. And
I remember stories like that too. You'd always rub our backs or rub our arms.
your hair. Always rubbed your head.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you put warm, hot oil in your ears, and it runs down your neck. William still wants me to tell the Sandman to his kids. It runs down your neck, it runs down through a tube, and you're warm all over. Don't get me started.
No, this is exactly what I was hoping for.
That's where it come from. My imagination was just, I don't know where I got it from.
Do you remember the magic school bus and the rainbows?
No.
Used to always say I'd be on the school bus with all my best friends, and I'd ride a rainbow, and I'd slide down the rainbow, and all your friends were cheering you, Derek, Derek.
I always said your name. Pretty soon you was asleep.
Yeah, I think all the grandkids loved that.
They did. Even Samantha did. She's the one I never thought would. Even she did, but now. Her and Chris always wanted me to rub their hair and rub their feet. I was good at rubbing their feet, massaging.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real thing. That's good for your feet because it's reflexology, and some old lady was teaching it to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd rub their feet, and I'd say, now it's my turn. They'd rub my foot. That's enough. They'd play in my hair. That's enough.
That's funny.
So...
Well, the other thing I want to talk to you about that you brought up earlier, one of your hobbies is flowers. And I think that's where I get it too.
I do too.
A flower hoarder, and I get it from you.
I think so.
Describe what you think of my garden or my yard.
I think it's funny. I think it's good. I think it's a good therapy. I think it is something you picked up from me. I really do. And you had an imagination when you was little too.
Yeah.
That old shack you made, that old building.
Mm-hmm. But you were telling someone about my yard at home. I think you were telling one of the uncles about my yard at home.
I tell everybody, I said, Derek doesn't have a yard. He's got a nursery. He has no grass. He has flowers and vines and fruit trees and I guess you got a grape arbor.
Mm-hmm.
We had one over home too.
Yeah, it was always fun when we were going to get flowers with you at the greenhouse. I don't know what greenhouses we used to go to, but I used to love that when I was a kid.
Yeah, and I think you got your love of thrift shops from me.
I'm sure I did.
I love junk. I love junk. I'd like to go out to these we had a big old ash pile where my grandparents took their ashes.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that old ash pile. And my grandma, I think I got my love of flowers from my grandma. She had a whole row of hollyhocks going to the old toilet house.
Mm-hmm.
I told that story in church one time about the old toilet, told it to the children.
The outhouse?
And the adults loved it. I said, it was hard to go out there at night. But I said, I used to love to sit in that because I said it was a nice toilet. It was a 3-seater. I said we had 2 adult seats and we had a little tiny one for little kids. And my grandpa always put a bucket of lime in the corner to clean it up and make it smell good.
Mm-hmm.
And I said I'd sit out there and listen to people going down the road, hear what they're saying. And I'd go out there and I'd sing. Boy, I'd sing in that old toilet, and I just had an imagination. I don't know where it come from. I really don't.
Did you ever use all 3 seats at the same time?
No, that was hard to do. No.
I mean, with family members.
No, I don't think anybody's ever in the toilet with me.
That's
My mother
good.
took me at nights if I had to go at nights because she'd have to walk me down the path with the flashlight.
Mm-hmm.
But I told him, I said, one Halloween, my grandpa was sitting out there. And I said, the old toilet was sitting by the road, right next to the road. And he heard these boys coming down the road. And he got out of there real quick. And you might know the toilet went over. That old toilet was pushed over so many times, I don't know how they ever got it to stand up. But he swore he was going to sit out there some Halloween with a gun and shoot him. Of course, he wouldn't do that, but
That's funny.
that was a good memory, too, that old toilet. I'd sit out there and read. That was my private place, too, besides my room at home. And the old cellar. I loved that cellar. It stunk. It smelled so musty. I loved it. I played down in the dirt.
Was there much light down there and in the toilet?
There was no toilet.
Oh, I mean, in the outhouse. Was there light in the outhouse, or was it dark?
No, it was dark. It was dark.
Was there any windows or a moon on the door?
I don't think so. I don't remember. No, I don't think so.
Well, bringing it all up to 2022, whatever year it is now. One thing I think we should mention, we've talked about Grandpa a couple of times and his drinking. Does he still have a drinking problem? Are you still dealing with that?
No. He went to camp meeting one night, or one week, with the pastor, I think, for the first time, and everybody got together at camp meeting, and after the meetings were over at nights, everybody come outside and, talked to each other and got acquainted and talked. And he said to me one time, he said, "You know what, Dora?" He said, "all these people are standing around and nobody's smoking." I said, "Adventists don't smoke. They don't believe in smoking." And that preyed on his mind, and he quit. He went to snuff. He started out chewing and spitting.
Mm.
And one day I think he said he had Gary with him at the lake. And he come home and he said, all of a sudden I got so sick of that spit and I threw it out the window. And he quit smoking and drinking and gambling.
Oh, he used to gamble too.
Oh my gosh, he was a poker player.
Did he ever bring back a lot of money?
Yeah, but he lost a lot of money too. Yeah. we had a lot of hard times in our married life. We had a lot of memories, but we had a lot of hard times too.
Well, I mean, nowadays he's is he head elder of the church,
Yeah,
and he's that guy that not a single person can say a bad word about.
I don't think so.
I don't know a person who doesn't love you and Grandpa.
Heidi Davis, you don't know her. She told me just last week in church, she said, you know, Dora, you really draw people to you. And I said, what? And she said, well, you've always been good to Earl. Earl's been very good to me when we're by ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But he's getting so now when somebody's around, he's really been getting kind of mean, and I'm really getting tired of it. One time in front of Jim Holly, he took a little tiny pack of cookies,
Mm-hmm.
and he mashed them on my head. And last week, he loves to mess up my hair. And I've told him about it. I said, Earl, you're very good to me when nobody's around. Why do you? But everybody says, he loves you, Dora. He just wants your attention.
Tell me the story about how you became Seventh-day Adventist.
It's a long story.
Well, tell me just the beginning. 'Cause
Okay, I worked for this lady. She had a bookcase in her kitchen, and this one book kept drawing my attention. It was called Bible Studies for the Home. And I decided to take that book out, and I took it home, and I got the address, and I sent for it. It was $2 then. The book didn't come, but the coal porter did. The ones that sell the books.
Mm-hmm.
He came, and we got started on Bible studies. And your mom wasn't too interested right then, but Nanny kind of was. Nanny got real sick when she was baptized, but when she got baptized, it was all gone.
What kind of sick was she?
Like she wanted to vomit.
During the baptism?
No, just before.
Mm.
And Grandma didn't like our church, but she went to it, see her get baptized, and she was fine. And Grandpa got started because the preacher came, and Grandpa acted smart. He'd smoke in front of him or come to the table and sit down and no shirt on, just real smart.
Smoking, drinking, and no shirt on.
But the pastor got him by saying, Don, it's not what I say, it's what the Bible says. Let's go to the Bible and look up what it says. And that won him.
What was the pastor's name?
Ken Studer,
What was the coal porter's name?
Gary Burns, and he turned out to be a pastor.
Yep.
You know Gary Burns very well.
Went to college with his kids.
Yeah, I got the magazine. He'd done a write-up on me and Don.
Yeah, his wife just passed a year ago.
Yeah,
And
she was the nicest lady.
she sure was.
She
I think
really was.
Gary's on his way out right now.
What?
Yeah, he has Alzheimer's or dementia, and
You're
he's
kidding.
he's
His dad
going.
died too, right after she did, I think. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. He was so good to us. And then when he went to school to be a minister, his mother took over. And just went from there.
Yeah.
We liked the church we went. We loved all the people in the church, but there was one woman I didn't like. I wasn't going to like her. I was never going to like her. Well, then she asked me to help her with communion, and I was a yes person. I said yes and got up to do it, and I was so nervous I couldn't even pick up the tablecloth. And after service, I apologized to her, and all she said was, "That's okay, you'll learn." Then she asked me a few weeks later to, I want this to be a children's story, by the way. She asked me if I'd help her in the kitchen with the potluck. There again, I said yes. I got down in the kitchen, which was in our basement, you remember that, and I couldn't find anything. I didn't know where anything was. I didn't know what to do, and she could do everything. She was just an organizer. Again, I apologized to her. She said, "Oh, that's okay. You'll do fine. Then I got to be head deaconess one time. That was years later. Anyway, soon after that, she asked me to ride to Kentucky with her to get free shoes. Was giving away free shoes at the church, and it worried me to death. I said, "Yeah, I'll go with you." I couldn't sleep. I said, "What am I going to say to her? I can't talk to her. I'm going to be a dummy. I don't know how to handle this." had a good time, rode to Kentucky with her to get the shoes. She was a business person.
Mm-hmm.
And had a really good time. After that, she said, I want to invite you and your husband family to come home with us next Sabbath for dinner. Again, I said yes. Again, I worried about it. I said, I won't know. She'll be fancy and one of my kids will spill something or say they don't like something. And, I just worry. And her husband, what's Dawn going to say to her husband? He's a businessman, made all kinds of money. How are they going to talk together? Got along fine. Everybody got along fine. She had 6 kids, I had 4, and they all got along fine.
What was her name?
Do I have to tell you that?
No, you don't have to. But do I know who she is?
Yeah, I'm sure you do. I'm sure everybody in the church will know. But after that, this was one of my stories. I just give up my storytelling in the church. Now, I'm kind of sorry in a way, but I didn't like to use the microphone. But after that, I really got to liking her, and I ended up, I really loved her. I still knew she's still living.
And she helped you kind of get used to being in the church, too?
Very good to me, very nice.
Well, I think I cut you off, and the part that I always think is funny, and maybe in my head I dramatize it a little bit more, but tell me about the progression of Grandpa. So when Gary Burns first started coming, he'd be smoking a cigarette in the house. He'd have a beer in his hand.
This was Ken Studer. This was the pastor.
But, how many times did Gary Burns come to your house?
Not too many times, just a few, because he was going into the ministry then.
He got you started, and then he passed.
Yeah, we went to his wedding, and Marianne's wedding.
They were both at my wedding, too.
They were. That's right, they were, because that's where we saw them at.
Mm-hmm.
That was a wonderful time.
But when Ken Studer, describe the progression of how Grandpa slowly faded into becoming a partying.
I told you that. He got so he couldn't get away with anything Ken said, because Ken would always say, Don, it's not what I'm saying. And the smoking didn't bother him. The no shirt didn't bother him. He was really winning him that way, because he said, Don, it's not what I'm saying. Don't go by what the preacher says. Go by what God says. And that's
so over time, Grandpa didn't just change overnight, right?
Just gradually.
What was the first thing to go when Ken Studer would come over? What was the first thing?
I think he quit smoking.
Did he put a shirt on first or after smoking?
I think he put a shirt on when he come to the table. Grandma didn't like him at all. She didn't. What are you doing going to church on Sabbath?
On Saturday.
Saturday, she'd say. Yeah, because she didn't know about the Sabbath. I said, well, just like anybody else, just tell them we're serving the same God they are, but different church.
What was your grandma's name?
It was my mother.
Oh, okay.
It was my mother.
Yeah, you call your mother, grandma, because it's your kid's
Ken
grandma.
Studer started calling her he called her grandma.
Oh.
Yeah.
You also call Grandpa Dad.
Yeah, I do. I call him Dad. Used to be Hun, but now it's Dad. Dad and Mom.
Dad
and Mom.
Yeah. I love when people do impressions of you. I should just have everyone do their impression of you. I was here one day. This is really off topic, but it's my podcast, so I can do whatever I want. And Youngin will give me notes on how I can improve. You were doing dishes at the sink here in the house, and I put a picture on Instagram, just back of you while you're doing dishes, and I posted something like,
"Oh, God.
I love my grandma. She's so perfectly eccentric." And I think Bethany Rose was commented on it. She said, "There's no better description for your grandma than perfectly eccentric."
You told me that.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, just the stories in my head of Grandpa was that, each time, I kind of see it as like a TV episode. Each time Ken Studer would come, first he'd have his shirt on and a cigarette in one hand and a beer in the other. And the next time he'd come, he'd have a shirt on, no cigarette, but a beer. And the next time...
I don't think he ever brought a beer to the table. I don't ever remember him doing that.
Well, don't ruin my story.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the beer.
Yeah. So something I want to talk to you about is genealogy. So something I think is really neat. I'm 37 years old and I have 4 living grandparents. There's not many like that.
No, there isn't.
So I got you to spit into a vial. Did you know why I was having you do that, and what did you think of that?
Yeah, you was getting my DNA, but I think you made a mistake on that.
Yeah?
You went by Myers. You should have went by Suydam on me.
Well, that won't change the DNA results.
Oh, okay.
I can still change it to Suydam, but that won't change the results.
Oh, okay.
The results were just so that we could see what your blood is.
Yeah.
And I've actually got it all here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've got it all right here in front of me. What do you think your number one ethnic origin is?
What do you mean by that? I don't know what you...
So, American, European, and then European. Well, we're all European. So, like, what countries do your people came from? What do you think the number one?
I'd say America.
Well, before they came here.
Oh.
So
I had
when
no idea.
when I was younger, you used to say that you were Dutch Irish.
Yeah, I still say that.
Okay, so that's what I'm talking about in that. So what do you think the number one, your heritage, your ethnicity? What country do you think you came from the most? Your ancestors.
I don't know how to answer that.
I'll tell you. You're 42% Scottish.
I am?
Yes. I'm actually going to my first Highland Games in October. Highland Games is the Scottish festivals. You and Grandma Barb, Dad's mom, she's also extremely Scottish. So I'm 50% Scottish. So you're 42% Scottish. Do you want to take a guess on what you are second?
I don't
You're
know.
34% English and Northwestern European. So that's 76%.
How can that be when you're born here, American mom and dad?
Mm-hmm.
How does it get to be Scottish and Dutch and Irish? And
Well, because someone from Scotland came here. And then, at some point, someone from Scotland came here, someone from England came here, and, your great-great-great-great-great-grandparents were born in Scotland.
golly,
You're 10% Swedish and Danish. You're 6% Welsh from Wales.
golly.
Only 4% Irish. This says, and I have a hard time believing this because when I first did this, it said you were 1% Japanese. And you told me that you had some family that lived in Japan for a little while. But since every time I go on Ancestry.com, it seems to change a little bit. This says you're 2% Southern Indian. And it said that for years now, for at least a year.
Golly.
You're 2% Southern Indian and 2% German. Did you ever think you were only 2% German?
I only thought I was Dutch Irish because I got the accent of Irish and Dutch.
Yeah.
Dutch.
Well, you're mostly Scottish, according to Ancestry.com. So I'm really excited because I have a friend that's really into the Highland Games where they throw balls and they'll throw like a telephone pole. They'll throw axes. They wear the kilts. And I've been studying history,
Oh,
like Scottish history a little bit. I've been getting into it. And I want to get more into it. And then you can actually go, there's a tent for every clan. There's clans from Scotland. And each family has a tent there, or like a booth, and you can go and you can talk to them and say like, hey, here's what I am. My grandma is 42% Scottish, and then I can start listing. Each tent has a name on it. So if there's Suydam, I don't know if Suydam is Scottish, but if it is, and there's a Scottish Suydam tent, I'm gonna go talk to them, and I can actually join a clan. It's a little less formal than that maybe, but Grandma Barb, her maiden name was Wilkie, and that's actually short for William. Wilkie is short for William, and at one point Scotland was taken over by William the Great, who was French, but even though a Frenchman kind of took over Scotland, he was more or less well liked. So a nickname for William was Wilkie, and that's where she gets her name because she's Scottish. So if there's a Wilkie tent there, clan tent, I'm going to go talk to them and, network with them.
Wow, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty cool. And that's, I like that we're having some conversations that we've never had before.
Yeah, I do too. Boy, you're very intelligent. I didn't know you were so intelligent.
It helps to have YouTube, and I can watch some YouTube videos. And then,
but your language is very intelligent.
Oh, well, thank you. I got you fooled.
Yeah, you sure have.
Yeah. So you were born in what year?
1934.
1934. A lot has happened since then.
I reckon.
There's been a few things that happened. I did a little bit of research, and I kind of looked at like the major events of basically the 30s up until, I knew you were born in the 30s, but I couldn't remember quite what year. So do you think you were a Depression baby? Not as in depressed, but the Great Depression.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So how do you think that affected your life?
I don't think it did, because my grandfather especially raised a big garden, and we ate good. I thought we was rich. I mean, I had a great childhood.
That's
I
awesome.
really did.
So you never went hungry? You don't really...
I don't think I ever... In fact, I think I ate too much, because my grandmother and my mother were great cooks. Everything was from scratch. Homemade.
How was your cooking?
I wasn't interested in cooking then.
Did you ever get good at cooking?
I thought I did. As long as I had everything to do with. A lot of times they didn't have things to do with. They just used what they had, and, we went to the store, we went to grocery. I remember everything was in bulk, and I'd go down to the grocery and buy 10 cents worth of brown sugar and come home. Me and my grandma would make brown sugar balls. I told that children's story too.
What's a brown sugar ball?
You take the brown sugar, just make a ball with it. Make a sugar ball.
And then eat it?
Oh, eat it. I loved it. I ate brown sugar. Me and my grandma ate it on everything. Oatmeal, mostly out of her hand.
Did brown sugar taste the same then as it does now?
Oh, yeah, I still love it. I took a container of brown sugar to church and showed the kids and told them how we made it, or how we squished it in our hand and make a ball out of it and just ate it. Mm-hmm. I said, don't do that because it'll ruin your teeth. And it did.
Well, that's funny. So in the early 30s was the Dust Bowl, which I assume is, pretty linked to the Great Depression. I think that was part of the reason why.
Probably.
The Hoover Dam was built when you were probably 3 or 4 years old. You probably don't remember that happening.
No.
But when you were in your early 30s, the War of the Worlds came out. Do you know about that? I just recently found out about it. They've made movies about it. On the radio, a guy... Man, I'm going to kick myself for not knowing who the author of War of the Worlds is. H.G. Wells? Have you heard of H.G. Wells?
I've heard of that name, yeah.
I think it was H.G. Wells. He did a broadcast on the radio of a fiction War of the Worlds story, his book. And people thought it was real. And they thought the world was coming to an end.
Oh, my.
There was alien ships coming, and people were listening to the radio, and they're not used to hearing stories in fiction like that. So it really, really messed people up.
Oh, yes.
So you would have been, 5 or 6 of the oldest when that happened. Yeah, we should read more into it because I think that was pretty interesting. But I've heard that.
Yeah.
And then, what year were you born? 34.
Mm-hmm.
So when you were 5 years old, the war started. Was anyone in your family have to serve in World War II?
My brother did.
It was World War II. So World War I was before you were born.
Yeah.
Your brother served?
He served in 2.
Dick?
World War II, uh-huh.
Dick Suydam?
No,
Dick Suttles?
Marshall. He's my half-brother.
Oh, okay. Right, because him and Norma were your half-siblings.
Yeah.
How many times was your dad married?
Well, this neighbor, He just died too. He looked on his computer and he said my dad had been married 3 times before my mother, and he made me a copy. I never knew that. And I'm glad I didn't know it because I was very, very jealous of my dad. And my Aunt Mary, which was Grandma's son, Danny, married Mary.
Mm-hmm.
And her and my Aunt Edie, you remember Aunt Edie?
Mm-hmm.
They'd get together and they'd tell me the terrible stories about my dad. We seen him uptown. We actually seen him with a black woman. And he had his arm around her, something like that.
Yeah. That was not as okay back then.
Oh, they thought that was just hilarious. I got so mad. There again.
You had the tongue
You
out,
leave my
shaking the
dad alone.
fist.
Don't you say that about my dad. That's a lie. He wouldn't do that. He loved me too much to do that. That's another good memory I want to tell you about that.
Yeah.
My dad and I used to go down to the bus station, catch a bus, go to a movie together,
Yeah.
and then we'd go down to the restaurant on the corner and he'd buy me a sandwich.
What kind of sandwich?
Any kind we wanted, just, I don't know, just common stuff. And we'd catch a bus and come home.
Where did you go to see the movie?
Wilmington.
Was there sound?
The theater, yeah, we went to theater.
Is it black and white or color?
That I can't remember that.
I don't know. I'm not sure what year color came in. I'm also
I'm
not
not
sure
either.
what year
Yeah.
sound came in because they used to be silent films.
I don't think these were. I don't know.
Well, that's a fun story that I had never heard.
Yeah, I loved it. I got pictures of him someplace. I'll show you that. And I got cards with his name on it when he was in the movies.
That's cool.
He was in the movies.
We need to try to figure out what movies he was in because I've seen every once in a while Ancestry.com sends me
I
some
got
info.
a picture of him. These little, what they call them, auto harps or something. It was a small piano.
Mm-hmm.
He had on a black suit and a black hat.
So do you think you have other brothers and sisters out there that you don't know about?
Could be. I don't know. I don't really think he was married that long, but it only takes one night for, to get pregnant. But
Can you explain to me how that works?
no, I can't. I don't want to. No, I don't, because Samantha got me on that too, boy. We'll go into that with her.
Oh, that's fun. So yeah, what was it like being 5 years old? And I mean, were you scared? Did you know much about the war? Or was communication not really a big deal back then?
Wouldn't. No, I was. Only thing I remember, I was spoiled. I was spoiled by my dad. I remember my dad rocking me and rubbing my legs. I always had, my legs always hurt. I think it was from running so much. I didn't walk. I didn't walk. From the time I could walk, I ran.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my neighbor saying, "Slow down, Dora, slow down. Where you going, to fire?"
Well, you ran so fast the braces fell off your legs, right?
No, I didn't have braces. But I ran all over town. I ran every place I went. I don't know why I did that. I just ran. I wanted to get there and I wanted to get back. And
You were in a hurry.
yeah,
What did your brother do in World War II?
I don't really know what all soldiers do, I guess. No, he wasn't.
But he came back all in one piece, and
Yeah, he met his wife in South Dakota when he was in the Army and fell in love with her and brought her back home, and I hated her because she married my brother and I didn't have his attention. He taught me how to drive an old pickup truck while he done his lesson study on the wheel. I'd be turning.
did you have to shift?
Yeah, well, shifter.
Was it hard? Shifting was hard back then, right?
No, well, it probably was.
What year do you think that was?
I had no idea. No pickup truck.
Do you know how old you were when you first learned to drive? Were you like 12 or were you like 16?
I was probably younger than that because he was trying to.
So you might have learned to drive when you were 10?
I don't know. No, I don't think I really learned to drive till I was in high school.
Did they have seatbelts back then?
No.
Do you know how old were you when seatbelts started becoming a thing? Do you know?
That was just not too long ago, really.
Yeah. Well, if we get to the 1940s, I doubt you remember much about each decade. Do you remember anything about the 40s? So you were but news and just kind of what was going on, technology.
Yeah,
or
just
so when you were, I guess when you were 10 to a teenager, Churchill came into power.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember anything about Pearl Harbor happening?
yeah, because Dad was in that. Dad saw that, I think. Grandpa, Dad to me, Grandpa to you.
Yeah, well, that happened about 10 years before he served. So I wonder, when I talk to him, I should ask him if
You asked if he remembers. His
yeah, I
memories
was
get
wondering
bad too.
wondering if Pearl Harbor has anything to do with why he, chose the Navy and wanted to serve later. I've been to Pearl Harbor, and one of the ships that sunk, they never raised. So it's
Oh,
it's
my
a
gosh.
memorial and it's a tomb because all the bodies are still in there now.
Oh my gosh! No.
I think I've been in a lot of ships, and I think the one that it's still down there, I think, is the Arizona. We took a boat over it, and you kind of see it, but bright day, and it
Wow.
wasn't real clear.
Grandpa's ship was called the LST 1157.
1157. Yeah, he told me about that. That's great that you remember that because he told me, and I've forgotten,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah, I saw it.
decommissioned. But that was the 50s.
Yeah.
So yeah, then D-Day was 1944, and then the Korean War happened in the 50s. So what year did you get married?
54.
54. So yeah, that was right at the very end of the Korean War. Korean War, I think, ended in 1954.
Grandpa was in Korea.
Mm-hmm.
Korea, Japan.
They say that the 50s were the golden age. Have you heard that phrase before?
Oh, yeah.
What do you think was golden? Why do they call it that?
I don't know. Never did know.
You just
It
missed.
wasn't golden. It wasn't.
No. You had just missed the Roaring 20s. I think that would have been an incredible time to be alive.
Yeah.
So what year, do you know what year your parents were born?
I got it in an old Bible.
It wasn't
That old Bible's upstairs, I think. I could tell you from that.
it wasn't 1800s though. That would have been they
No,
would have been born in the 10s.
I don't know. It might have been. I think Grandma died at 74. My dad died in his 60s. I got it down in an old Bible upstairs.
Yeah, I probably have it actually in my phone. I have the family tree, so I could look. I was just wondering because they probably got to live through the 1920s. I think that would have been a really fun time to be
Yeah,
alive.
they went to dances. My dad played at dances down here where Dave Hockett lives. That was called the old sheep shed. That's
Yeah.
what they called it. And they had dances in there. Grandma, I guess she was. Somebody told me, I don't know if it was Dick or Norm or somebody told me that Grandma was a beautiful girl.
Yeah.
They didn't take pictures then.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how they met. I don't know where they met. I don't know.
Something I should have already asked you. So you told me how you and Grandpa met. How did he propose?
Who, Dad? Grandpa
Yeah.
now?
How did he propose to you?
Up in the old cemetery.
Which old cemetery?
Up here on the hill.
He proposed to you in Clarksville?
At the old cemetery up here on the hill.
I'm pretty sure he told me it was in Pleasant Plain and it was raining.
I think you are right. I think it was storming. And I think you're right.
I'll have to ask him and then cross-reference and see which one he has the better memory.
But I think the old cemetery, I think that might have been when he gave me the ring.
You still have the ring?
Yeah, but they were so thin and cheap, they wore into. I still got them.
Oh,
They
you
wore
still have it?
into.
Why don't we should fix it.
You can't. My fingers a little bit bigger. They were.
But your ring now is in two pieces? Mm-hmm. Well, we can get it put back together. You don't have to wear
Who
it.
won it?
Me. But I mean, you can keep it. You should keep it, but we could have it restored.
It's so thin, I don't think you could.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, well, that's interesting. I feel like I did a whole bunch of. I kind of interviewed you 3 or 4 years ago. Well, 5 years ago now, I guess.
I remember that.
I can't remember all. I wish I could find the documents of all the good questions that I asked because your stories and Grandpa's stories never quite lined
Probably
up.
didn't.
The funnest thing that you have said was 18 times.
That's true. He'll tell you that too. He will tell you that. But we're both getting forgetful.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's just funny. It's a time period. Like no one today would say 18 times. Like that was really interesting to me, is the way
It
that
was.
you told me 18 times.
And he
which
kept
was
saying he wasn't going to get married. He told his friends he wasn't going to get married till he was like 25.
Mm-hmm.
And we got some good pictures.
Yeah. Well, back to let's keep going through. We're talking about the golden age. Were you tracking the space race at all when you were younger? Which this would have been. You had been married by then. You were starting a family around the time of the space race. Sputnik landed in 1957.
I don't even remember that.
Castro took over Cuba in 1959.
I remember that. I do remember that.
Yeah. What do you remember about it?
Just that it happened. I'm talking about getting him. And
Did people not like Castro, or was he considered
no,
okay?
he was almost like Hitler, wasn't he? He was the power. He was the boss. He had the power to, and I guess he was mean.
Yeah. Well, backing up to the 40s, did you remember hearing about Hitler?
Mm-hmm.
At first, so what I understand, people, didn't mind him at first. When he started leading Germany, before he started killing people and whatever, people didn't mind him so much. I mean, I don't know.
I told a children's story about him one time, too, about how he killed people and killed children. And somebody told me, and I don't know if this is true or not, he killed his own son. I don't know if that's true or not.
No.
I think I heard he was a vegetarian. I don't know about that.
I think he was part Jewish, too.
Probably was. Could have been.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you, I was trying to, you would have been pretty young, but I was wondering if you remember it at the point where, he wasn't considered a bad guy like he is today.
Oh, no, I always heard he was very mean.
Mm-hmm. Well, 59 is kind of when the hippies came in. What did your dad think of all the hippies?
I don't think my folks talked much about people. I had this girlfriend, she lived down here in this alley, and it looked like a barn she lived in.
Mm-hmm.
And she was considered not popular. She was considered poor, and her dad was kind of mean to her, but her mother was a Pentecostal, where, they shout, and she played the piano. I just loved it. I loved to go to their house. They were so poor, and I loved them. Grandma didn't. What will people think of you going down there? You stay away from her. And one time she was out here on the road, and somebody called me skinny or something. And she took a two before and she was going to hit him. And if she had him, she would have killed him. She took up for me that much. But one night, after we was married, we was friends, and they come down here, her and her husband, and I wasn't home. And Grandpa took them out to Chief's Lake. He thinks that's great. He said, I was entertaining your friends. I said, you went without me and left me home with the kids. That wasn't right. And I went out there and I told her, I said, don't you ever come to my house ever again. And here she took up for me all through school.
Mm-hmm.
But
was she a hippie?
no. No. She had a brother, sisters.
You just got jealous a lot.
I wasn't jealous of her.
She was too poor to be jealous of?
I don't know about that.
Do you remember the Martin Luther King Jr. assassination?
Yeah.
Did people like him? Did white people like him back then? Or did they just act like...
I don't think they did. I don't think they did.
Everyone acts like... All the white people now act like they... Well, older people, and then everyone kind of assumes that he was beloved among everyone, but...
Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah, so the moon landing was actually 1969. Sputnik was 1957.
Gosh, it's good you remember all that stuff.
I looked it all up. I don't remember any of it, but just trying to remember. I'm just trying to, kind of the things that you've lived through and just kind of see if you have any interesting memories. Or, when you were younger, there was a lot... I mean, over your lifetime, there's been a lot of disasters and bad things that have happened. Do you remember where you were at a lot of those places? like, is there any, what was the first major disaster you remember and where you were at? For me, it was 9/11. I remember exactly where I was when it happened.
I don't remember that.
No?
I don't remember what. Oh, yeah, I was home, and I think your mother called and told me. She said, have you got the TV on? And I said, no. She said, well, turn it on. I think that's when I found out.
Mm-hmm. Well, kicking it up to the 70s, Watergate and the disco. And
Yeah.
did you ever go to a disco?
No, I don't think so.
When I was in Memphis, probably a year ago now, it was the last disco, the last original disco is still going on there.
Really?
Yeah, I need to go there sometime. Yeah, so I guess 70s Vietnam, that seems like I feel like that affected our country as much as anything.
It could have.
Because that's when heavy drug use and like experimental drug use. Like the 60s, I guess, was, people were using marijuana, but in the 70s is when LSD, like hallucinogenics, and
Yeah.
I've heard that was a major shift in our country because it was the first time where the American dream started deviating because of the LSD, it was allowing Americans to think in new ways. So then that's kind of I've heard it's a major turning point for the United States. Like not everyone wanted a family and kids and, live the American dream kind of still as we know it today. But then that kind of, because, people were using LSD and other drugs that were given to them by the government, that they started just like, having new thoughts. And actually, it had some positive effects in art and a lot of part of our culture. The 70s was when MASH came on TV.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch MASH?
Yeah.
And Star Wars. Did you ever watch the original Star Wars movies?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I liked them.
You were probably in your late 30s when Star Wars came out, so it might have been a little bit past your time, and you were a mom in Clarksville.
Yeah.
And then the 80s were just a great decade. 1985 was probably the best year you've ever had.
Really? I don't remember. I don't remember any of it.
You don't remember anything from 1985?
Not unless you ask me, I might remember.
Nothing really, really good happened to you in 1985?
Well, we went through graduations. All of our kids graduated.
No really, really, really cool grandson was born?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, 1985, I just think was a great year. And then, like just before that, the first Macintosh computer. So that was a pretty major turning point for the world.
I don't know if you want this on your broadcast or not, but
I absolutely do.
You need to broadcast your mother.
Yeah.
Her life.
What's her most interesting story, do you think?
It could have been when you was born, maybe. You need to know she was a terrific mom. She really was.
Yeah. Did you teach her all you knew?
Yeah, I think I did. She's got bad memories of me, though. She told me one time that I was better to Janice than I was to her, and I don't ever remember being mean to her. I don't ever. She said Nanny had a temper, and we'd laugh about it. And then I sent her to a party with a half a bottle of Pepsi, and she was so embarrassed. I don't remember doing that at all.
Something that
I hate that.
used to embarrass me about you when I was little, and now I think it's hilarious, and I would do the same thing, is your Christmas presents. You know what I'm talking about?
Wrapping them in newspaper?
Exactly. I don't know why.
My kids still tell me about that. They still remember that.
It's genius and kind of awesome. I mean, did you use at least the funny papers, or did you use whatever?
I used anything,
Yeah.
Just,
That's I need to start doing that just in honor of you. The problem is newspapers are hard to get a hold of.
oh, well, we always got the newspaper though. I think we got it more than we had the nice paper.
Yeah, well, I guess that's why you have all these stacks of newspapers in
It
your
is.
basement now.
And I
Okay.
think that's why I'm a keeper, because my grandparents kept everything, thinking sometime they might need it. They might use it. Maybe the neighbors will need something, you know. And I don't know why they kept everything, but
Yeah. Well, going back to history, I just want to wrap this up real quick.
yeah, because we've been more than an hour, I know. Poor Grandpa sitting out there.
The 80s gave us Pac-Man. The 90s we had apartheid. Do you remember apartheid? I wish I knew more about it. Something really bad that happened in South Africa. I think it was like racial stuff. And Nelson Mandela was imprisoned. The USSR dissolved. Did you remember that? When they tore down the Berlin Wall?
Yeah, I think I do. Yeah, I think so.
That was in the 90s. Columbine happened. Bill Clinton came into power. Did you like Bill Clinton?
No.
No? He was a little bit of a ladies' man?
Yeah. I think they shouldn't have aired it on national television about him, though. I don't think that was right.
Yeah.
I thought the presidents were human. They made mistakes, but what he did wasn't right.
Yeah.
I mean, then they let it air on TV like it was funny, and he got by with it.
Yeah, like his wife is now with all of her things.
Yeah.
Well, then I guess shortly after him, Nelson Mandela was freed and he became president of South Africa. 95, the Oklahoma City bombing happened. Do you remember that?
Yeah. And remember when Obama come in? I remember him
First,
very well.
First black president.
Uh-huh.
No matter what people thought of him, I think he's a little better than what we have now.
Oh, I think so too, but nobody liked him either.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to talk about the 1910s and the 1920s because most of us have lived through that, and they're not very interesting. And I definitely don't want to talk about the recent disasters because we've all had enough of that. So I just wanted, thought it'd be fun to kind of run through those and just see what you remember. And I'm looking at my notes, and I think that's a lot I wanted to cover. So this is your chance. I mean, hopefully you'll have lots more chances. I'll have you on more podcasts in the future. But what do you want to be known for? This is your chance to tell the world and have it cemented in history. What do you want to be known for, and what have you learned in your 29 years of life?
Well, I think becoming a really good Christian. I've probably gotten a little bit kinder. I still got my temper, but I think I'm a little bit kinder and more understanding. Still jealous. Still jealous. Having my children, raising them, they're all good. Philip, he's a heartache. Everybody knows that. I love him. I feel sorry for him, but it's a horrible addiction. But I have addictions too. I'm very addicted to sweets. Very. I see them sweets on the table and they just draw me up there to the table.
What's your favorite sweets?
Oh, I think pies, especially homemade pies.
What kind of pie?
Oh,
What is your number one?
Sugar cream was my favorite, full of sugar. But Grandma made custard pies. I couldn't wait till they got out of the oven. I ate them warm. And Grandpa tells people I always said, I like any kind of pies, hot or cold.
I'm not a huge pie fan, but I do love a rhubarb pie.
I do
A
too.
rhubarb strawberry with some crumble on top. My stepdad
Delicious.
Gary makes some of the best.
When I worked for Harry McVeigh here in town, Grandma made the pies, all the pies. And he said if she made 14 different kinds of pies, I ate 14 different kinds of pies. He told that to everybody. I remember that. And his nickname for me was Cricket, because he said I just ran, I was waiting on everybody doing, I don't know where I got all that at. Just,
That's
doing
funny.
things. But I don't like the part of my life where I was jealous and ornery and mean and sneaking. And lying.
Tell me what is the secret to living to be 29 and to be married for almost 70 years? What's the secret to long life and long marriage?
I think I loved him. It's what kept us together. Grandpa's not much of a conversationalist. That kind of hurt us. He's not affectionate anymore. That hurts me. Because I would like to hold his hand. I'd like to hold his hand in church. No.
Have you tried?
Well, your mother says it's up to me to do that. And I wasn't raised that way. In my time, the men done the calling and the kind of bossing, if you like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they was in charge. And
Are you a feminist?
I don't think so.
I think. Let me give you the actual definition of a feminist.
You'll have to.
I'm googling it now.
But I'm going to have to get up there with Grandpa. I know he's probably sick.
We're wrapping up. A feminist is a person who supports feminism. So I guess we have to find out what feminism is. But
Yeah.
I think you'll say that you're advocacy for women's rights on the basis of equality. So do you believe that women are equal to men?
No.
How are they not equal?
For instance, I don't like for the women to be on the platform at church. I think I got that from Grandpa. He doesn't like it at all.
How come?
I think he went in a church that was men. It used to be the men sat on one side of the church and women on the other, and the women weren't allowed to talk in church. If they had a question, they went home and asked their husbands at home.
Do you think that's how it should be now?
No. I think if the women got the talent, but we need that. I understand that part. But Grandpa don't like it. He thinks it should be men.
Yeah, I mean it's like that's just how things were done for most of your lives.
Yeah, it was. It was. The men was always in charge. I've always let Grandpa make the decisions. I can't make decisions.
Yeah, I mean I think it's probably different for everyone, right? So some.
I think so. I think
you
it
know,
is.
If you're happy with that, you don't want to make
But
decisions.
I don't know where I changed or how I changed, but I was never afraid of nothing. I wasn't afraid to go 90 miles an hour in the car.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like the roller coaster. I never did like it. I was scared to death of it because I got in a boat one time that went
Straight down.
and it scared me half to death.
Mm-hmm. You ever got a speeding ticket?
Oh, yeah.
How many?
Yeah, I don't know.
I've never had one. 37 years, never had a speeding ticket.
Boy, that's something to brag on.
It's because I don't speed.
That's good. I did.
I'm lying. I just ain't got caught yet.
Well, that's good. Your mama remembers.
Yeah.
I outdrove a guy home one night from Sabina, and I passed everything on the road. I'm ashamed of that now. But I was going to beat him. I mean, I was that mean. I was going to. I did. It's a wonder we didn't wreck. I passed everything on the road, but I beat him, and I'm not proud of that.
Well, that's funny.
She called me the white streak. I had that old Nova, and I beat him home.
That's awesome. Well, anything else is there anything we missed? What for the first appearance of Dora Myers on the Eccentric podcast?
I think I've told you more than I've ever told anybody else my life history.
Yeah. So you're on the Eccentric podcast. You know what esoteric means?
No,
You know what eccentric means?
no, I was never smart. I told you that.
Well, can you guess what esoteric might mean?
That's the Derek. Derek?
No, that's,
Yeah.
That's half of it. Esoteric means, so this podcast is esoteric. It's made for a very small, limited audience. That's kind of what esoteric means. It's like not many people are going to care about it, but a small amount of people will. So that's esoteric. And then I just added Derek onto it.
So this is going to come on public to your kids or your like Jackson or
if they want to. So far, I only have about 3 people who listen, so I'm not doing great. But you got to tell all your friends and get them to listen.
I'd probably be ashamed to tell them half of it.
Well,
maybe over half of it.
Yeah. Well, maybe now that you'll know what a podcast is, and well, thank you for chatting with me. I have no idea how long this turned out to be, but
I think it's been over an hour, but it was very enjoyable.
I thought you'd enjoy it. You told me that you didn't think you could do 90 minutes, so I said 60 minutes.
I didn't think I could set 50 minutes, but I think I done pretty good there.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being on here, and
Thank you for having me.
Let's go relieve Grandpa at the yard sale.
We better, because I know he's
hopefully
mad.
he sold everything.
I don't know. He might have just given it away. Get rid of it.
All right. Well, thank you, Grandma. Talk to you in a minute.